Greetings and blessings to everyone. We're glad to greet you once again. We're thankful for the mercies of God and for his ability to help us in so many ways. We are confident of the Lord's presence, his power, and the ability that he gives us to live for him, to do his will, and to know with certainty that everything will be all right. We're fascinated by God's mercies and his grace. We are really exuberant about the way God blesses his people and helps us to get through some things. Certainly these are challenging times, and we are finding a way through with the Lord's help. And we are made to understand each and every day that if it had not been for the Lord that was on our side, where would we be today? It's amazing when you can draw encouragement from day-to-day living. You can be encouraged by the word of the Lord. You can be encouraged in those moments where God reveals himself to you. You can be encouraged by the victories that you win from day to day. And so we're making every effort to present the God of the Bible, the God who is true, the one who is faithful. We're making every effort to show how God is so present with us that regardless of what you may face in life, in your adventure, that some way or another you can trust in the Lord today. Now, we've been talking from Exodus chapter 1, which presents a number of applications for us as God's people, understanding that Israel was really being set up for an extended time of slavery and discomfort and pain that they must endure. Certainly, they find themselves in Egypt because of God's grace and the planning of Joseph to be able to find a way for his family, his people, to survive the famine. And then there arose a king that did not know Joseph, who became very hostile toward God's people and set up a number of things to try to break their spirit, break their hearts, and to render them powerless. We learn a lot from this because many of the things that were mentioned in Exodus chapter 1 remind us of the kind of things that we as people go through. The times when things out of nowhere began to occur against us. Those times when it seems like every obstacle is in your path. Those times when you just don't understand why things have shifted and changed so much and presented such a headache for you. Well, Exodus chapter 1, on one hand, talks about the difficulties that Israel faced. But on the other hand, it shows just how blessed they were to be able to endure, to be up for the task of doing the work that was required of them, and of having some type of assurance that God would hear their prayer. Now, the Egyptians went all in to humble Israel by every conceivable means. They tried a little bit of this, tried a little bit of that to try to bring Israel down. They subjugated Jacob's descendants with the bitter and difficult experience of bondage. Israel performed strenuous and hazardous work. Sometimes the enemy definitely spends an enormous amount of time scheming and planning your downfall. However, during those times or during these times, God is your anchor. He is the one in whom you can trust. And on many levels, Israel's story is your story of victory. God is a deliverer. He is the waymaker that you need in your life. He is the provider that helps you through every difficulty. One thing about life is that none of us are immune from trouble. We don't escape trouble. We don't escape problems. We do not have it smooth all the time. Sometimes some of us spend a lifetime of dealing with one agony after another agony, but yet understanding that God is faithful. I think that's the realization that we are to come to through our difficult moments, that God is faithful, regardless of who has lifted a hand against you, regardless of who has schemed against you, regardless of what seems to have hesitated in your life. God is faithful. Now, your experiences are designed to make you strong, to make you able and appreciative of what God has done. Now, sure enough, you can appreciate God without troubles. Sure enough, you could appreciate what God has done without having to deal with conflict and tragedy in your life. That is certain, and that is desirable. But the word lets us know that we're not to think it strange when fiery trials come up against us. It ought not to seem abnormal. What you're facing is common to the human situation. But God does so much during those times to help us to become stronger, to become able, and to appreciate what He has done. Now you are strengthened in the Lord and prepared to stand during challenging situations. God built you for this. You can make it. You can hold on. You can get through this because God has prepared you. God has imparted faith to you. And therefore, you have the spiritual provisions that are required to make it through. With God's help, you are able to endure with faith, with courage, and persistence. God has shown you how to make it. And that's the beauty of it all, is that many times in entering your time of testing, you may not know what to do, but God shows you how to make it. God gives you what it takes. God balances your spirit, balances your will, gives you peace of mind, gives you power to go through knowing that you're going to be all right. You are able to endure with faith, courage, and persistence. God has shown you the way. You have picked up a new skill as a result of your adversity. You have expanded your creativity in the midst of your difficulties. And you have enhanced your relationship with God. You've learned how to read your Bible. You've learned how to submit yourself to God. You've learned how to pray with authority and genuineness and sincerity. You have established a powerful relationship with God. What the enemy or the problem meant for evil, God has overturned it for your good. Now, Pharaoh devised a plan to weaken and to possibly eliminate Israel altogether. That was on his mind. I've got to get these people out my way because they're growing in great numbers. They're too strong for us. And the fear is that these people will overtake us. So Pharaoh devised a plan to weaken and to possibly eliminate Israel. He commanded the Hebrew midwives to kill the boy babies when they are born. In fact, the future of Israel would be stunted by such an effort. The midwives reverenced God and refused to follow the king's instructions. When the king confronted the midwives, asked them, "Why did you disobey?" The midwives stood faithful, knowing that it is more important to serve God than man. It's more important to remain faithful to the law than to do things that are out of character and out of the will of God. And so Israel continued to grow, continued to prosper, even when the Pharaoh was their hostile enemy. Now, God was pleased with the conduct of the midwives. The passage says that God dealt well with the midwives. Israel multiplied and grew mighty in spite of the king. God knows how to circumvent some people in your life. God knows how to get around the processes that have been lined up against you, and he'll bless you in spite of it all. God knows how to do that. Never ever allow yourself to feel so hemmed in by your opposition and so surrounded in a way that there's no help for you, because God knows how to get around all of that stuff. He knows how to get around people in order to bless you today. Now, God gives you the testimony of how he blessed you sometimes in spite of yourself. You kept getting in your own way, but God led you to green pastures. You know in yourself that it was the Lord who turned things around for you. God remembered the faithfulness of the midwives and built them houses. He knows your obedience to him. He knows your submission to his will. He knows your desires for the things of God. As the psalmist says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. God built houses for faithful midwives. He built houses for women who reverenced him and honored him and obeyed him, regardless of what the king was saying to them. There was nothing the king could do to block the favor of God. I came to tell you this tonight. There's no weapon, there's no hostility that can be formed against you that will block God's favor. God will get to you. God will lift you. God will encourage you. God will give you what it takes to make it through. You're blessed in the land, even when things go wrong. Blessings to you, and we look forward to sharing with you again next time. In Jesus' name.